Hey there, beautiful people. This is Gina Robinson, and you are listening to the Renew Podcast. You are in the right place and always welcome here. All right, ladies, welcome back to the Renew Podcast. And as always, I have my sidekick, my friend, my pastor.
Happy to be here.
Lauren's with me today, and we have got some special guests with us who are dear to many people, but today we have Whitford Wooten, and it's her birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
Whitford.
birthday.
Thank you.
We love birthdays.
Any reason to celebrate.
I know. And we also have her friend with us, Whitley Stalling. Shout out to Whitley for coming. She kind of was made to come, by the way.
I'm here against my will.
She got roped into this really quick.
She said, I don't know why I'm here.
I know. But there is a reason why she's here. And so, first of all, I just want to explain kind of how this all started, how Whitford wound up here on the Renew Podcast. Whitley reached out to me, and I'm not really sure, Whitley, if you knew that I knew her family. Did you?
I knew you probably knew of
her family.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So in 2017, my father passed of ALS, and Whitford, your father passed of ALS the same year.
Yes.
I think their passings were really only 3 to 4 months apart when that happened. But her mother, Elizabeth, so graciously met me for dinner at Panera with Marion Cooper, and her husband Nelson had passed of ALS, and they had already formed a bond and a friendship. But when you go through something like this, the first thing, because I am an extrovert, so you talked about how you are an introvert. I don't really have a problem reaching out, but sometimes I can kind of hold back with vulnerability. And these two women just really shared their hearts and opened up to me, and it was such a blessing to me. So I already knew a little bit about your family. And so when Whitley reached out, I was like, I would love to have her on and really share your story of now being diagnosed with the same disease. And I don't want to say too much because this is your story and not mine. But if you'll just share a little bit about your life, who you are, and where you are now. And I know that's a mouthful. So
That's a tall order.
I know, but today is your birthday. You're 33.
Sure am.
I know.
Very old.
She's got a party later, guys. Don't feel sorry for her.
No, it's only a dessert party. It's not a full-on party.
Not a full-on party. Dessert.
Yeah, just dessert. So I grew up in East North Carolina. Let's see. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. I'm blanking. So I grew up in East North Carolina. I went to a small little private school, played field hockey, dedicated my whole life to play field hockey in college. Ended up blowing out both of my knees between junior and senior year. And the Lord said, nope, you're not going to go play in college. And I had to decommit from the school that I was supposed to go to. And so I went to state. And I had a little bit too much fun my first semester freshman year. And
I can relate.
Yeah, way too much fun. And I ended up transferring between my sophomore and junior year and going to ECU. And because I was an education major, I should have been at ECU in the first place. Their education program is, the best in the state. And I just didn't want to go there from the beginning because it was my backyard. And I ended up loving it, as my parents told me I would, and I didn't want to listen to them. And met some incredible people, but I still don't claim them as my first school.
She's very much a wolf pack.
I am.
She will not let us forget it.
Nope, try to get her children to
She's
claim
even
it.
got red shoes
on.
on.
Yes. Like when they went to the Final Four this past year, I was all about it, was trying to find a way to go. Don't claim ECU athletics at all, but I will claim my degree. Like if there's ever a fire, my prized possession is my diploma.
We're going to have to edit this.
So I was diagnosed with lupus at the age of 21. And so my college experience was drastically altered. I didn't end up going out partying, all that good stuff. So I ended up having a port put in right after I graduated, and they told me I could not be in the classroom for 6 months. And I had this brand new shiny diploma, and I was like, I can't be in the classroom. What in the world? What am I going to do? And I knew that I loved kids and I loved coaching field hockey. And so I decided to go work for Young Life. And I fell in love with ministry at that point. And about a year later, my dad was diagnosed with ALS. And so I decided, okay, well, why don't I just stick with Young Life? And then when he was diagnosed, I was like, okay, I'm just going to quit my job altogether. And so I moved home and was one of his caregivers. And my mom and I, to this day, will say that was the hardest but most incredible 11 months of our lives. It was almost supernatural in the way that it fell and happened. The Lord met every need before we knew we needed it. It was really sweet, but really difficult. After that, I moved to Athens, Georgia, worked in a church or for a church, and knew that that part of ministry was definitely not where my heart was. And then moved to Raleigh, worked for a preschool, and then I was diagnosed with ALS, and here we are.
Wow. It's so interesting that you said it was almost like it was supernatural of how the things went, because your mother did such a great job at really just sharing the stories and the life, and that's what I've seen her do now, and you too, is sharing your story along the way. It kind of brings people in to where you are, and that's a vulnerable place to be, but it really does give a better picture of really what's happening, and it's allowing the Lord just to use all the pieces along the way. Now, your sidekick today, Miss Whitley, you guys met, and I know state and sorority kind of brought you guys together. That's the only thing I honestly even know. And then you won a giveaway, and you're off to a concert together. Mm-hmm. So should I let Whitley tell this part?
100%.
So we really first interacted 2 recruitments ago, so 2 falls ago.
Yep.
She is and was. She claims to be retired, but she sure is into the CIO of NC State. And she was the CIO advisor. We went to the advisor meeting post-recruitment, and she was there. I walked up to her, and I said, "Are you Elizabeth's daughter?"
Side note, I am always, when somebody asks me, they never ask, "Are you Whitford?" I'm either, "Are you Elizabeth's daughter?" or "Are you Carrington's sister?" I am never my own person.
And obviously, Elizabeth is famous for all of her stories that she writes on Instagram. I am Elizabeth's #1 fan, okay? So she said yes. We talked. And then it wasn't until really this recruitment that we became friends through a lot of things during NC State recruitment. We exchanged numbers, and then we just click, right? And it's Holy Spirit led. It is Jesus at the end of the day. But we have a lot of things in common. And as like a grown adult, there's not many like people who are as still obsessed with their sorority like we are. So we do bond on that.
Yes.
And we did win a giveaway, which I didn't even fully like participed in. I'm not even sure how I won it because I didn't follow the accounts I was supposed to. So that
Jesus
was also Holy Spirit led.
100%.
She tagged me in it. I was like, yes. And that was it. And then all I know is they're like, hey, you won 4 tickets to a Map City concert. And I was like, are you serious? So I was like, I have to go. I have 3 kids at home. I'm like, my husband's like, you're going to go to Raleigh like on a Tuesday night for a concert? What are you doing? And I'm like, okay, 1, it's Whitford. 2, I literally can't not go. The Lord orchestrated this.
This is like a yes.
And we had the best time.
Sure did.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Hunter went with you guys, didn't
Hunter
she?
went with us because we had 4 tickets. We couldn't get Elizabeth to go.
Yeah.
We kept trying to get her to go with us.
Yeah.
But I wanted Whitford to do something. I wanted her to tell her own story. Like I said, I'm Elizabeth's biggest fan, but Elizabeth has her perspective of not only her story with her husband, but now her story with her daughter. I want Whitford to be able to tell Whitford's story from her perspective and her experience, because I just believe in it so much, and I see the light that you shine. We are not sweet like this to each other.
No, it's
So I'm
really
trying
weird.
not to make eye contact.
So funny. Well, I think one of the things that's really unknown by a lot of people is really what ALS is. We hear about it and we know that it's a fatal disease, and so far a cure has not been found. I love some of the comments that, you hear is that I think it was either you or your mother put that, ALS is not rare, it's underfunded.
100%.
And I think, obviously you guys have lived this for a couple of years now. Your father passed, 7 or 8 years ago, and we were talking about therapy in the front office. That was fun. I'm in therapy. She's in therapy.
We all are.
We
Love it.
We all need healing. But talking about that and going through that, which is traumatic, and even though there was many sweet moments, can you share some things about ALS and some things that you have learned that you've maybe been surprised about? Things that you weren't, because yours is a different type. Your gene is different from what your father had.
So one thing we've learned, so I go to a different clinic than my dad went to. So he went to Duke and I go to Wake Forest. I have nothing against Duke. Love Duke. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
But I have familial ALS. So there's sporadic and familial. Familial is when you have more than one family member with ALS. And because my dad had it, I have familial. Then there's bulbar and then limb onset. And so my dad had bulbar, and that's why he passed away in 11 months, is because his was very aggressive. I have limb onset. So my first symptom was in my leg. So I have limb onset. But I go to Wake Forest because they are very heavily invested in genetics. And so I was like, this is where I need to be. And also I love Dr. Cartwright. He's very laid back, jokes with me, kind of makes fun of me. And that's what I need.
Yeah.
And he has a dark sense of humor, also what I need. And so since our dads had ALS, so when my dad had ALS and your dad had ALS, they were only able to test for 2 genes of ALS. So the SOD1 and the C9ORF72, I think that's right. And now I was tested for 44 genes. And that is what they discovered since both of our dads passed away, which is phenomenal.
Wow.
But if I read correctly, there's, I think, over 500 genes that can cause ALS, but they're only able to test for 44, which is a very small type. So I have had the most thorough panel possible of genes, but they are not able to find my gene that causes my ALS, which is fascinating in my humble opinion. So I'm still a mystery, and there are only 1/3 of familial patients who are not able to find their gene. And I'm in that 1/3.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, we talked about with Elizabeth, your mom, prior to recording that, you were an adult living your own life. And you moved back in with your mother.
Sure did.
And I know that my sons would not want to do that. So I just think, your mom went through so much, and you as well, with your father having ALS, and there were so many gifts in that. But you are having some precious time now that you have this little suite that your friends can come and go.
Yes. Yes. It's a precious time, and it's also very humbling. I say every day, ALS will humble you. Like this week, I've learned that I'm going to have to surrender my driver's license. And granted, I haven't driven in a year. I sold my car a year ago. do I need to drive? Probably not.
No, she doesn't.
Thank you.
We don't like her driving the wheelchair sometimes.
But if I ever got the sudden urge to go from North Hills to the North Hills Target, and I wanted to do that in the state of North Carolina, I am legal to drive. But surrendering my driver's license, I'm no longer legally allowed to drive. And so it's just things like that. It very much humbles you. I'm very fortunate that I don't need someone to bathe me yet. And that word yet is really used a lot in our household. But again, my mom and I have, this is being very candid, have a conversation a lot of I'm not her spouse this time around. I'm a grown daughter. And so there's that different dynamic this time around. Yeah. But I'm very fortunate that she is allowing me to live with her and she is willing to caregive again, because that can be very difficult.
Well, and then the progression that with this disease, I mean, it kind of goes in stages. And I know you watched it with your father, but like something you put on your Instagram post, I was kind of like, Lauren, you were talking about how you were like stalking.
I totally Instagram stalk. In fact, I have a screenshot one that I want to read out because it is so, oh my gosh, I teared up reading it.
Oh, boy. We're going to let her too, because if she screenshotted it, it's some good stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But you said something about when you got diagnosed with this disease, you said, I'm going to do this on my terms and not allow ALS. Explain what you meant by that.
So there a lot of different things can happen. So you have to make the decision of whether or not you want to get a feeding tube, whether you want to be trached, whether you want to use a breathing machine, whether you want to use suction. I know where I'm going. I know that where I'm going to be healed is in heaven. And this sounds terrible. And if you don't know Jesus, it's not going to make sense. But why would I prolong my life and be miserable and suffer when I know that I'm going to be healed in heaven? And so I don't want to prolong my life and suffer with all of these machines when I know that I'm going to be healed, whole, and perfect in heaven. And so that's what I mean by I'm going to do this on my terms. So.
And you did make some decisions. You told me you're not going to do the trilogy, but you decided to do the feeding tube.
So I started the trilogy when I had my first official ALS appointment back last October. My breathing numbers were not the greatest, and so I was like, okay, I'll at least try it. I'm not going to try it. So I tried it, and then back in this past, last April of 2024, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. And so Dr. Cartwright was like, you're the patient. You're in the driver's seat. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
Wow.
My sister and my mom were not the happiest with me, but I was like, I don't want to do it. I'm miserable. Why am I going to continue to do something when I'm not happy? And so then I was like, okay, I don't really want a feeding tube, but I'll get it. And so I got it. And I'm no longer enjoying food. Yeah. And so, and I'm someone who loves to eat, loves sweets. And so my mom will love this. She was correct. I am glad that I have it. So now that I can just not have to worry about when I go out to eat with friends. I'm not constantly worrying, okay, am I going to choke? Am I having to worry about breathing and eating? And so now I can just go straight to bagged food.
Yeah, and you can enjoy the people in your life and have that time with them.
100%.
Yeah. People really stare at us when I cut up her food at restaurants.
Yes, yes.
Because I feel like it's the invisible disease sometimes. I mean, that's
My friends are really great about, they don't even ask anymore. They just take my food and start cutting it for me. And it's wonderful when waiters just kind of like look at you and they're like, is something wrong with you? Well, yes, there is something wrong with me.
And we love to go, she's dying. And they don't return back to the table.
They kind of look at us.
Have traumatized the wait
and
staff.
I'm like, no, legitimately.
Waiters.
Legitimately, I have ALS. Like, I am dying. We have done that, twice? Yep. And both times they did not return to the table.
They did not return. They were like,
oh my goodness.
And you know what? I bet they'll never ask anyone else again.
They learned a valuable lesson that they
did. I'm like, we might as well make it a hobby.
Oh my gosh. Well, Lauren, you to.
Yes.
She loves asking questions too, so I'm going to give up for a little bit and
Oh,
let Lauren
man.
go.
So admittedly, I was telling your mom and Gina before we started recording, I try to walk a fine line when we do these recordings because I don't want to know too much because I want the conversation to be very fresh, Holy Spirit led. I don't want to come in here with a certain agenda I'm trying to get out, and I think Gina would agree. However, on a topic like this that I don't know a ton about, and it is very significant, I wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about you and your mom. I've heard from Gina, so I kind of had an idea, but when she tagged your Instagram on the note she sent me, I thought, I'm just going to be that person that's like
Let me look.
Instagram stalking. And there was one that stuck out to me that your mom posted, and as soon as I say what it is, you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I knew that's what it was." But it's about your golden.
Oh, Henry.
Yes. So I want to read this very
Okay.
short, and then I want you to talk more about him. And this is from your mom. It says, Henry watched as his first owner suffered with ALS. We have no idea if he remembers it, but he is very aware of the wheelchairs, both the indoor and the outdoor one. He immediately remembered how to walk alongside it without the instruction. He is so hyper focused on Whitford that it borders neurosis. He has not adapted well to the pulling up of rugs or rearranging of furniture to accommodate the wheelchair, but that's because he keeps slipping and he just wants to hug her. But one thing that is clear, the universal love language across humanity and the animal kingdom is love. And Aaron and I give him kind of a hard time. I've grew up with dogs, huge dog lover. I mean, I am like through and through a dog person. And he had a dog at one point. That's another story for a different day.
Sure is.
He's just not a dog person. And so I am totally of the mindset, like, you can be a dog owner, but you may not be a dog person. And dogs know that. And they respond differently to that. And so when I read that post, I was like, oh my gosh. I felt like I was able to see a different side of maybe the day-to-day that I thought was just so special that she shared. But I would love to hear more about Henry, your golden.
Well, anytime you want to come borrow him or
Oh
just
my gosh,
snuggle time, please. Everyone.
Watch out, she
I
will.
love dogs.
He loves everyone. He's never met a stranger. We actually got Henry so that he could be my dad's service dog, but we got him July 4th week, and then my dad passed July 21st of 2017, so my dad never really survived long enough for him to see him. But we have videos of Henry as a puppy riding in his wheelchair with my dad. It was really sweet. Henry's a mess. He hates the car. Unlike any other golden, he absolutely hates a car ride. Like, if you say, let's go for a ride, he runs the other way. Like,
That is amazing.
hates a car. He also has colitis, so you can't give him a treat.
What?
No treats for this dog. Like, I'm telling you, he's the most special dog you will ever meet in your entire life. He's wonderful, though. He's very intuitive. So I have a wheelchair that is so we live in a three-story townhouse, and I have a wheelchair that is just for the main level of the townhouse. And when that arrived, the wheels would get stuck on my mom's rugs, and I was like, we've got to roll some of these up. So when we did, he was undone for about a week because he was so out of sorts, and the wheelchair freaked him out. And then when I got the wheelchair that I came in today, it's like he knew, and we take him on walks, and he would just walk with his leash beside me. And then when the big wheelchair came, same thing. So he's very intuitive. He's really sweet. Never met a stranger.
Yeah.
He's great.
There was another a video I think your mom posted, and I think you were standing up to watch a game or watching something, and again, dog people would recognize it, just some of the way his posture with you and the way that he kind of moved and just kind of watching you move, and I was like, oh oh my gosh, I'm in love with this dog. I've never met this dog ever. But I just think it's really sweet, and I think it really is like a real thing.
Yeah.
Just like how God sends you people. Like, I know y'all joke about things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I would feel about that. But that's exactly like what you say that you want and need. And I think it's really awesome that God just can seemingly do small things, but it really has like such an impact on your life and your heart. And I love that. I had to share it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. We're both dog fans. I mean, I grew up with dogs,
Oh, my
and
gosh.
our boys are mad that we got 2 labs after they left the house. They're like, "Why did this happen? Well, we begged you for another dog." Because when one dog dies, it's like
Yes.
really a lot of grief, and we're like, we're not doing this again. So we had already lost a lab, but anyway. But I know that was such a gift to your mother during that time as she walked through that story, Henry was. And I know the dog loves baths, okay? Because he is
does.
special. He gets like the mobile service.
Yes. He actually got groomed on, I think, Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday or Friday. And
Yes.
he loves a spa day.
Yes, just like a girl. Loves the
Yeah,
loves
Katie
the
says
spa
that he'll
days.
like lift his paw so that she can like scrub underneath his. Yeah, he loves it.
He needs his own Instagram.
He really does. He really does. I'll put Whitley in
That'll
charge
be,
of that.
that'll be Elizabeth's project.
She doesn't need another project.
That is awesome. Tell us a little bit about your sister too, because I've seen her in the social media stuff, and she's come back to visit. Doesn't she live at the coast?
She does. She's a very private person. She's very private. I love her dearly. She's been wonderful. She comes up when she can. She works for a cabinet company. She's incredibly smart. Wittier than I am, and I think I'm pretty witty. Very sarcastic, but she's the witty one.
What's the age difference between you all?
3.5 years.
Okay.
So a very good age gap.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've seen some of the posts of her coming to visit, so I know you guys have some sweet time together. Let's talk about your faith a little bit.
Okay.
Because I mean, like we all have our stories and our testimonies, right? So you talked a little bit about this first semester at college. Wasn't that great? It was great, but it didn't go great
it was
for the grades
wonderful
or
for
anything.
me. It was wonderful. Dad was not very happy though.
Oh gosh. But when do you really remember going, okay, I have a personal relationship with the Lord, and I know that having this disease has grown your faith. It's probably challenged your faith at times.
Yeah.
But overall, I've seen how much you've been drawn to Him, even more so, and more dependent on Him. So can you share anything you want to about that?
Yeah. I grew up in a faith-based household. I always went to vacation Bible school, always went to, anything and everything Sunday school. And then it wasn't until summer going into my senior year of high school, I went to Gold Rush at Perimeter Church in Atlanta, that I was like, yep, this is what I want to do. So I gave my life to Christ then. And then when I went off to college, I didn't completely walk away, but I was like, I call it my sabbatical.
Yes.
I took a little sabbatical.
Whitney's like nodding because she knows about that.
We love a good sabbatical every now and then.
Took my sabbatical. And then it was when I transferred to ECU and actually started coming here that I was like, okay, I really need to, nothing else really worked. Like partying was not for me. And so, and then my dad getting sick was really where it kind of clicked back on for me. And then me getting sick, obviously, was like, oh, yeah, he was faithful when my dad was sick. And obviously, he's going to be faithful again. And again, he met every need for my dad, and he's met every need before I knew I needed it. So, yeah.
So in your kind of just meeting people and talking about your faith, have you seen where more people have reached out to you since you've been diagnosed with this disease? Because, people see our faith and they're like, oh, they love Jesus, or maybe, yeah, they have a relationship with the Lord, but how has that impacted your relationships as far as since you've had the disease and then your faith?
There will be some people who send me messages and they're like, thank you so much. I haven't had a relationship with Jesus in 20 some years, and your wanting me, or you're helping me to want to restart my relationship. And I'm like, I don't know how to handle that. Like, that's not my forte.
Yeah.
But how can I pray for you and how can I help you?
Oh.
Like, I don't even know. And I'm like, how can I pray for you? But that's kind of, those things are wild to me. But like I said earlier, I'm a very introverted person unless I'm very close to you, and then I'm like very extroverted. With my dad's illness, my mom documented everything, and we didn't document him enough. And I felt like, I think we should document this because, granted, it's not going to matter to me. I'm not going to be here, but I feel like taking pictures is really important. And I feel like if I document my fate, that's also important. People need to know that I'm not angry, I'm not mad, I'm not upset, because I am going to be healed. So why not point people to the one who matters the most?
That's good.
I don't think that answers your question, but that was my tangent.
Does. No, it absolutely does. Because I feel like people, when we're vulnerable and sharing from our heart, people feel more comfortable to reach out.
Right.
A lot of times. And sometimes when you're going through darkness and valleys, they're like, wow, I'm not alone. Like, and she may know how this feels, or, that type of thing. Whitley, you're here with your friend. Is there anything you want to ask her?
Well, I was
live?
going to tell you,
good
if
Lord.
we could go back to when you were talking about your dad, and don't sauce me. If you could go back and talk about how, you said the Lord was faithful in that, and you don't want any of these interventions, or you want as minimal interventions as possible. Explain how the Lord was faithful in that with your dad, and how you hope that he can do that with you.
So the very first thing after my dad walked out of his appointment was that he didn't want to be locked in. And
explain what locked in is for the people.
Fair. It's when you lose the ability to speak, and you can only communicate through like eye gaze. And that also is a fear of mine. But granted, my speech is minimally affected. To me, it sounds affected, but it's not as affected. But my dad's speech was very slurred, and I was the only one who could understand him and translate for him. And so the Lord was very, very sweet and did not allow him to be locked in. And so, yeah, I think that's...
She's saying he went to be with Jesus before that happened.
Right. Correct. Thank
I
you.
love how she translates for you.
Yeah, I also have a bit of, I'm convinced I have dementia, and so
She says the dementia all the time. I'm like,
really does. So like I get lost in my train of thought while I'm speaking. I'm like, wait, where was I going with this? I promise I'm a smart person.
No, but that
I have a
is.
college degree, I promise.
Those are like the surprises and sweet kisses of the Lord, along
they're
the way.
miracles. And
Yeah.
when she told me that, like, my jaw was on the floor. Because you go, like, she goes, I don't want these. I didn't want a feeding tube. I don't want. And if you go and you look at a typical person with ALS, they are laid back in a wheelchair with an eye gaze. And I actually was Cliff. Cliff? No, not Cliff Godwin. Who was the guy, the ECU baseball coach?
LeClaire?
Oh,
Clark LeClaire. Okay,
Yeah.
so he lived in my neighborhood when I was little. I was like 4 or 5. And I remember, will never forget, I remember going over to his house when he was very sick. He had a daughter who was my age, and I was friend of a friend. And I just walked in, and he was laid back in his chair with his eye gaze. He could only communicate with his board.
Yeah.
And that's what I think when you think like severe ALS. So when she said all those things to me, I'm like, yeah, but those things, that's like part of it, So like, get ready.
Yeah.
And when she told me that, I was like, the Lord is so faithful. And us who are not facing a terminal illness, we all go like, oh, like, can't wait to be with Jesus. Everything's going to be better. But like, it truly is. And like, he is in heaven, healed, whole. And that's what we all want. But they actually have to look it in the eye. And that's what we're all faced with at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I think that's so powerful that he was able to do that for him. And it seems so sad. But when you know Jesus and when he is so faithful and he is so good in everything, there is no fear. And there's no fear in how she lives. And I think that is what is so inspirational, is that she's not scared because she knows the goodness of God.
Mm-hmm.
Preach on, Whitley.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think you were saying, like, getting out of your wheelchair and walking into this room. You're like, I want to do that. And I also know, like anybody else, we have people that love us, don't want us to get hurt, don't want us to fall, just like us being moms, protecting our children. And I'm saying this for your mom's benefit now because, she loves you and you're her child. However, you're an adult. So there is one little story I want to share about my experience when I was helping my mom take care of my dad. And I remember he had some of the same wishes, like he didn't want to be locked in. He actually didn't want a feeding tube. And he had his was aggressive too, but he kept getting misdiagnosed. So he died within 3 months. But the part that when I would fix his lunch or his sandwiches, I would get so mad because he wanted potato chips. And I'm thinking, you're not going to have potato chips. Nope, you're not. You're going to choke on those, and I'm by myself, and then I'm going to die because I'm going to have a heart attack. It was just like all these, I totally went into crisis mode, and it's just so like, well, then why not potato chips? Because that was good to him and it was comfort food to him, and he loved salty things. And it was, the effort to swallow and all those things were like just, I had fear and he didn't have fear. And it's just amazing to me because I should have been the one that wasn't fearful, and thinking that the person that's going through it. But it's just, your body, you have the Holy Spirit in your life. And I just think just sharing from what Whitley was talking about is that he's with us all the time and he hears our prayers. He says, be anxious for nothing, but I hadn't conquered that one yet. But it's just without him, I don't know what people do. And so just walking through this with the Lord, I know there's plenty of people that walk through. I was even sharing with our staff that you were coming, and I was like, I know that people deal with chronic pain and grief and sickness and hopelessness every day. And it may not be ALS, maybe something else. And so I want to give Lauren an opportunity to ask some more questions, but the one question that I do not want to forget to ask is what would you say to those people now, if there's people in front of you that are feeling that way, hopeless, and they do feel anxiety and they don't know what to do, and some of the things that maybe have helped you. I know you're not that person that never has fear, and so on the days where it's hard, what are some things that have given you peace, in the midst of all this?
I've been very fortunate to have friends who are really supportive, who get my dark sense of humor, because you have to have a dark sense of humor. A really strong faith. If you don't know Jesus, you need to know him. And a really good support system. That's critical. I think those are like my 3 big things for sure.
You're not alone. It sounds like you have a lot of people that love you and support you and are with you.
100%. Like I said, I couldn't do it by myself. And I think if you're trying to do it by yourself, then you're doing it wrong. Yeah. In my humble opinion.
Yeah. And a dark sense of humor.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. You got some more questions?
Well, I think just one. You're obviously a learner. You are very well spoken. You know
thank you. I try.
So much, and are learning so much. And might not be safe to assume, but you do strike me as somebody that's kind of been you as from the beginning, not just getting a diagnosis. Sometimes my experience can be when people get a diagnosis like ALS or terminal or something that they're going to have to face for the rest of their life. It's easy to lean on, I need to learn everything about it, or you become a lot more introspective, which in some ways is great. And on the other side of that, for believers, I have often found too that there's a part of God that they learn about that they didn't know before. So I think my question to you would be, is there something about God the Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, any facet of the Trinity that you have learned more about or had a different experience with him than before, even maybe before your dad was diagnosed?
Oh, that's a good one. I've always said that this is a side note, I've always said that if I could go and be paid to be a student, I would do it because I do like to learn.
I could tell.
I truly,
I'm
if I could be paid to go to school, I totally would. In fact, I was going to go and get my master's of social work right before I was diagnosed. And then I had to call and be like, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I was diagnosed with ALS, can't.
And they still hit her up every now and then, like, are you ready for your master's? She said, I have ALS.
BC did right before Christmas?
Yes.
And I was like, I'm so sorry. I was diagnosed with ALS. And they're like, hope you get better soon. I was like, no, it's terminal. Oh, yeah.
And she did respond that way. Do not worry. That man is still wondering.
I did.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that goes back to my dark sense of humor. You got to. Back to your question. I feel like I'm learning something new every day. That's a really tough question, and my brain doesn't work like it used to. No, but I really do feel like I'm learning something new every day that I didn't know before, and also I didn't know about myself.
Yeah.
If that answers your question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that speaks directly to when we are in heaven. We'll learn something new constantly. Like we will never get to the end of knowing God and knowing everything, and we get to discover Him. We will get to discover Him new all the time. So I think that is very, very applicable to where you are today, and I think it does nothing but speak to your mentality of your relationship with Him now. It's like, I can't wait to be with Him, and I think you're getting to experience what we will all eventually get to experience, but you're embracing it now, and you're like, I just want to learn more about you today and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Do you ever, like, I know we've all clarified that you're, like, good with, going to heaven. Do you ever ask why? Do you ever ask yourself, like, why? God, why did you do this to me? Like, I'm good with it, but, like, why?
No. I mean, because why?
Why? Because why? Why would I do that?
Turned it on you.
No, what I do, so my dad had a question, like, prepared for, like, when he got to heaven he wanted to ask. So I'm sitting here, and that's what I ponder about during the day. It's like, okay, what's going to be my question?
Oh, yeah.
That's cute.
So I gotta work on that.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I've said that, like, often thinking, I have so many questions for God, one day. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not going to have any of these.
It's not going to matter.
Yeah, I feel like they're not going to matter, but
this.
But in the event,
no worries.
But in the event that they do matter, I want to have one really good question.
If I
good
ever
one,
get bored, I need to remember this one question.
I just want to have one question
Just
in my
one.
back pocket.
Yeah, just in case.
Just in case.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
also think that's the difference between, like, being truly believing and truly having faith. You don't even question why. Whereas I feel like a lot of people would go, like, why would you do this to me? Why would you put me through this? Because I think a lot of people need to know that, yes, it's terminal, but you go through things all the time, 24/7. It affects your sleep, the way you eat, the way you talk, the way you walk. And that's something that I've had perspective on is, like, I go out to dinner with her, I cut up her food, I have empathy. And then I go back home and I use my two legs and my hand, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do think, I'm like, she goes home and she still deals with that. And I can't imagine the just taxing, because it never ends. And I think that that's something that I don't think a lot of people could do. And I just think you are an inspiration and a miracle, and people tell you that all the time.
Yeah, we don't do this.
I know. So people tell her all the time she's an inspiration, so I never do. But, we're here. This is the point.
Whitley is being rather sappy today.
like
Not
it.
sassy, but sappy.
I don't like I need the other side back.
New side of Whitley.
Okay, when we leave this, don't worry, I won't say another word about it.
Great. Thanks.
But because it is your birthday, you're having a little gathering for dessert tonight.
Yes.
Is that back in Raleigh?
It is, yes.
Yeah, so that's really sweet.
She was invited, but she said no.
Okay. I'm spending the day with her. So I was like, no, I'm not driving to Raleigh.
Granted, we haven't seen each other in 2 months, so she said no.
So now she's going to be mad about it. I knew it.
See, I can't be not like
Yeah.
I can't do
wait.
the sappiness. It's just not in me.
I just love that we've captured this.
I do too. I mean, look,
Because when I'm gone, you can look back.
And be like, I didn't go to her freaking birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
if anything, listeners,
I'm going to take her back to my house, let her play with my kids for like 30 minutes, and then I'll send her back to Raleigh.
Be done with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all do. Yes, I've seen the little pictures of you playing.
That's the
with-
best thing about Whitford is Whitford loves kids. So she comes
Yes.
over to my house and she sits on the floor. And she doesn't leave the floor because they just
I also can't get up.
They just hang out.
plop her down and say, stay right there.
Like Hartford, I can't get up.
No, her and Hartford Hartford and Whitford have a lot of time and fun together.
That is special. And, I was thinking about people that are listening today. So we have like a wide range of ages and listeners that listen to the episodes, and we'll get emails, sometimes of like, this really like ministered to me in my life, and I appreciate that. Sometimes Lauren and I will be at church and somebody will stop us. Or maybe it's a DM saying, thank you so much, because you don't know how low I am right now, and I just needed that encouragement. So we love for everybody to know that we want to pray for them, but if there's someone out there that really were to have a question, maybe it's not about ALS, maybe it's just about suffering or going through pain or trials, we'll be happy to forward your request on to you, if you don't mind, Whitford.
Don't mind.
Okay, and that way, and if you have something sassy you want to ask Whitley, feel free. We will forward that to her as well.
We're going to give out her phone number.
They would be met with more sassy messages.
But you have lived in Kinston. You've lived in Greenville, because when you were in school you've been in Raleigh. So I know that your life and your family has touched many people with this story. So we just thank you for traveling here on your birthday, first of all, and for your mom and for Whitley taking away some time. And just really, we know how much Whitley loves you, because literally she's like, have you thought about having Whitford on the podcast?
I don't think I said I think I said you need to have Whitford on the podcast.
That
Yeah,
sounds
and
more
if
like
you
Whitley.
don't do it, I'll find somebody else.
And I was like, okay.
Then she was like, so it'll be like 2 months. I was like, well, we're on a timeline, so you can take your time.
Right.
And then what else did I
Yeah.
say? I said,
You said,
okay.
I understand that she has time. And I'm like, yeah, so make it happen.
She was like I didn't know what ALS was.
That's really right.
And then honestly, the other part was I said, I don't know if I can get through this. And so I thank you for
But you
coming.
did.
I did. Because it's been healing, excuse me, just to talk to someone that's really, when someone is going through it, a lot of times if it's a parent, and you probably can relate because it was your father, there's some things that I skirtailed around at times because I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer. And then as you grow in the Lord and as you experience that, you're like, you know what? We are like children, and we ask questions because we love, and we ask questions because we want to know. And so thank you for just letting us just be a little like a dartboard, asking you all the
thank y'all.
questions, because it's been really sweet. And your story's not done.
Not yet.
No, it is not done. And so thank you for just documenting and posting and allowing your mom to post. Because
Look, she's the writer in the family, not me. So
She's an amazing writer.
She is.
Amazing.
she is.
I'm going to get her a book deal, too. I'm working on that.
I already told Elizabeth she's going to be on at some point, but I was like, we're on a timeline.
Well, she's not.
Yeah, we're on a timeline with Whitford, okay?
Apparently I am, according to this one.
I take care of business.
I know. So, guys, when you hear this, if you do have a prayer request or if there's something you want to ask or question, feel free to email renew@opendoorchurch.com, and you can listen to this episode on any of the platforms and YouTube. And once again, thank you, Whitford. Thank you, Whitley, for coming along. They're going to probably have more fun together after this, so that might be another episode. And as always, love you, Lauren. Thanks for being here. Bless y'all.